From Mons, City of Dragons in Belgium, Chicago, and the city of Stoke-on-Trent, this is the Classic Lenses Podcast. Hello and welcome to episode 79. My name is Simon Forster and I'm joined by Johnny Sisson and Eric Sluis. Hello, Johnny.
Hello from the city of, I don't know, pizza, Al Capone, and the Chicago Bulls. That's no dragons.
That's bad pizza, isn't it? But I guess we might come on to that one later. And Eric, City of Dragons, tell us more about that.
We have a dragon here, and it sleeps all year, and once a year comes out of its caves and fights with people for months. Beside that, we have French people, we have cheese, we have wine, we have sunshine. It is summertime in Mons. We are all happy.
I have to say, you live in the most extraordinary place. The photos that you share in photography with classic lenses in particular, and a few other groups, they're just incredible. It seems like you just walk out your house and there'll be somebody with horns sticking out the heads. I mean, is that how it works there?
Yeah, it is. And Mike Novak actually made a comment on it a couple of times. It's a big cultural city and there's a lot happening. And I live in the center of town. So when I get out of my front door, and maybe some people have seen a picture of the old house we live in, there's always something going on. And it's great fun. Great fun.
I think I saw the comment by Mike Novak. I'm not sure if it was your reply or his. Whereas I think for 6 days a week everybody's going around in some form of fancy dress, and then there's a casual dress down day where everybody just runs around naked on the seventh day.
Mike is right, but it's a big secret. We can't tell all these guys from Chicago and Stoke-on-Trent, and it's a well-kept secret.
Well, it's great to have you back with us, Eric.
Thank you.
Last time you were with us, and I took note of this, that was it, yeah. You were with us in episode 44, and in that episode we sent you to a desert island, and that was actually your second appearance on the show, if I'm correct. And we sent you to the desert island, and you really threw us a curveball by not selecting any Carl Zeiss lenses or Jena lenses in particular, because you're well known for your love of those old German lenses, and you didn't even take any of them.
Well, yes, because there's so many things on for the grabs and to take a look at, and I think my love for Zeiss and their Sonners is well known, so I thought it was a nice intention to go somewhere else. On the other side, I did take kind of a revenge on that. So I've been stocking up lately on Zeiss cameras, on Zeiss glass, and it's even now so that I'm indebted to my wife. And you know that this means, I'm confined to my desk for the moment.
Yeah, right.
What can I say? There's a girly party upstairs, so I can't go there. My junior is studying for the math exam he's got to take. And I'm in my office. That's basically it. Looking at my new gear. So I've been a good boy.
You have. Now, I just take things back just ever so slightly. I just want to say thank you to Ricardo Bayon for being our guest host last week, and he did so from a city in Florida called Uftar Raton. Was it Boca Raton? I can't quite remember this, but and I noticed that Ricardo was particularly nice to us last week. This is possibly because he was actually in front of us and with us. So he's not with us this week. So we expect Instagram's #BestVintageLens with their summary to return to type. Now he's no longer with us. So thanks for being with us last week, Ricardo. It was great fun.
Yeah, that was a nice show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, nice guy too.
And just to cover off that the reason why you're guest hosting with us this week, Eric, and that is because Perry is in week 2 of his odyssey around Canada, and he's on the road to New Brunswick as we speak. He contacted us earlier saying, can we have a good show again this week, please? So he can while away the miles and the hours listening to us. So we'll do our best, Perry. Right, so as we said, you were on episode 44 with us, so that was a good time ago. And you've been buying more Zeiss lenses and cameras and things like that. So do you want to give us a bit more of an update as to what you've been up to in the last, I'm guessing, about 9 or 10 months now since you were last with us?
Well, what basically happened is I got in the grips of the Zeiss Contax cameras. And I always considered them as being a little bit clunky and hard to use. And I was wrong. The glass is great. And I had a chance to pick up some cameras that actually work. And for the last, I would say, 5-6 months, I've been, making sure that they work, sending them out to clean, to loop. To get them repaired is almost impossible. Contax 2A, Contax 3A. And I found the glass to go with it. So as I, on one side, have some LTM Zeiss glass, I now also am the proud owner of some Contax rangefinder glass. And I enjoy it very, very much. It's great fun. It slows me down shooting, and it's great gear. And we all are gear lovers, and we like it, and we want to touch it and collect it and use it.
So what happened for you to change your view from the cameras being clunky, which a lot of people that have used them, and the same goes with the Kiev cameras, which are the copies, Soviet copies of that camera. So you've gone from a situation where you thought they were clunky to now actually, oh no, they're not. So what was the epiphany there?
Well, you have to get used to it. I think that's the most important thing. You have to take your time, feel the ergonomics. It's not a Leica. It's not as smooth as a Canon. It's not your typical rangefinder. But it does have the integrated viewfinder as far as the rangefinder is concerned. It doesn't have frame lines. But once you get used to it, it becomes a great tool. It does something shooting with a camera that is 60, 70 years old and actually functions like a miracle. And the pictures, I've posted some pictures that I made with it, and the glass is unreal. I mean, the rendering you get on film is, for me, and that might not be for everybody, but for me, it's absolutely great. Using them, taking them out and overcome the hurdles, and now I get up in the morning very early and go shoot with them. And I love them.
I've got to say, you've to use one of your favourite analogies, with you being a Red Sox fan, you've been knocking it out of the park with your photography lately, haven't you?
Well, I hope so. You see my pictures, and it inspires me to better compose, to better shoot, to better my lighting, my exposure, and it pushes me, and I can feel it. It became almost too easy with a rangefinder as a Leica, and this way I get more challenge. Now, don't get me wrong. If I have to go out and I'm in Budapest for 4 days, I still take an LTM or a M rangefinder for my speed, because I have to produce. But going out here with one of these Contaxes is fun. It's just plain old fun. Now, I know that Mr. Sisson in Chicago likes to use them too. Is that still the case, Johnny?
I like my Kiev.
Mm-hmm.
Which I basically look at the Kiev as a refined Contax, because I mean it really is. No, but I mean it is. I mean it's a direct copy of a Contax, but with some changes made to it.
It's a Contax 2.
That's what I mean. Yeah, it's
not a 2A.
No, but to me it's just as usable as a 2A. I don't know.
Okay.
I think I'm on record. I'm not a huge fan of that mount. The lenses are great. I had and let go of a Nikon S2, which is probably better than any version of any Contax ever put out usability wise. But yes. But I just don't get on with the mount because you can't really effectively zone focus with it very easily. It's too much work. It's just it's just too twee for me for just wanting to walk around and shoot. I mean, I can understand exactly what you're saying. Probably when you get in the zone with it, it's great. And that's what I actually like about my Kiev. When I'm in the zone with it, it's really nice. Yeah. But otherwise, it's just I don't have the patience to give it that much attention, you know. I'd rather just stick that lens on another body that's going to work. But I do get what you mean about them, because they do have a nice feel. I mean, a Kiev is never going to feel as nice as a later model Contax.
No, it's like you say. Once you're in the zone, it's great.
Yeah.
The lens, the glass is no discussion. I think.
Yeah, exactly. It's just but I don't get on with I don't get on with having to work so hard to do simple zone focusing, which it's very hard to do because of the way the mount works, because the entire lens, block is rotating. So so it's just I find them difficult as street shooters, but Mr. Eric is here to prove me wrong, because he does that very successfully. And he's doing the same thing I'm complaining about. He's just doing it. So if you just don't complain and work a little harder, everything is just fine.
Now, I have seen a giant rangefinder in a post by you. So what have you been up to lately, Mr.
Oh, yeah. Well, I have a lot of new acquisitions. I have not mentioned the past few weeks, but I believe you're referring to the so-called Texas Leica.
The one that's bigger than your cat.
Yes, there's a photo floating around of a camera next to a cat, and it's a Fujica GL690 that came to me from a very good friend, Mr. Robbie Jameson. He brought it in and said, "Well, you know what? I'm not using this. Why don't you try this out? Why don't you try this out?" And so I've had it for a few weeks, and I haven't actually used it yet. But I'd been here kind of pondering it and thinking what I want to shoot with it. And so then Robbie comes back into the shop the other day. He's like, why don't you just keep that camera? I'm like, Rob, what are you talking about? He says, no, just keep it. It's a karma thing. It came to me in a kind of a special way, and I really want you to have it. And I'm so, all right, well, thank you. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. So I have it. I haven't shot it yet. I think I'm debating whether to shoot it first or just to send it straight off to Mr. Frank Marshman, Camera Whiz, the repair guy here in the U.S. who does a lot of stuff, but he was he was actually worked for Fuji, so he knows all the Fuji rangefinders inside and out. So I mean, it's sort of like why not send it to him? He does great work. I figure why not just send it to him, let him get it tip top, and then I'll shoot it after that. So that's kind of my plan right now.
Nice.
But yeah, it's a big, beautiful camera, and thanks very much, Robbie. And damn it, now I need to go find the wide angle lens for this thing. So it will force me to buy another lens. So, which, we can't complain about that, because are we really brokenhearted about that here on the Classic Lenses podcast, having to buy another lens? No, we're not.
No.
So yes, that is the camera that is floating around. That's bigger than the cat.
Oh, yes.
Picture of which is floating around. I don't know. I mean, I could talk about new acquisitions all day long here. I mean, the other thing, the other notable, I'm just going to talk about gifted new acquisitions. How's that sound?
Sounds good to me.
So the other camera I have here in front of me actually came from Hamish Gill. And he wouldn't tell me what he was sending. He just said, "Did you get it yet? Did you get it yet? Is it on the way? Is it there yet?" He was very excited that this thing would show up on my doorstep, and it did. And what it is, it's a Panomicron, which some of you may have seen or heard of this camera. It's essentially a 3D printed panoramic camera. Same format as the wide lux, or I'm sorry, not the wide lux, the X-Pan, which I think was Hamish's motivation for sending it to me, is to give me something to talk about, where I was actually shooting, X-pan format in a real camera rather than doing crop sensor X-pan or crop frame pano. So this camera it's a 3D printed panoramic camera that uses a lens in a focusing sort of mount, so you can focus it. It's a 50 millimeter 2.8 lens, and I'm trying to remember what system this lens is off of originally, and I can't remember. I want to say it's I don't remember, but essentially it's a leaf shutter lens with a focusing mount and a viewfinder in a very interesting looking kind of gray 3D printed body. So I'm very much looking forward to giving this a shot, and seeing what this thing does, and seeing if it scratches my pano itch a little bit more. So I will be reviewing this camera at some point for 35mmC after I've had a chance to play with it. So that's my other gifted new acquisition. I have one more, but I'm not prepared to talk about it yet. That will be for a later date.
How about you, Simon?
Well, I've been up to a few things. Although in the last 7 days, it's been more large format lens related, because I bought a lens for my Meridian camera, which I'll probably go into more detail in the next large format photography podcast. But the gist of it is I bought a lens for a camera, and it didn't fit. When you're using large format cameras, you sort of have the opinion that, well, you can just about fit anything in anything. If it's a 4x4, 4x5 camera, therefore a 4x5 lens will fit. And I've now found that no, that doesn't actually always apply. Fortunately, I have two 4x5 cameras, and it fits in the other one. But yeah, it's a beautiful lens. But I'll talk more about that in the large format photography podcast. But what I had been doing the week before, which is something of an update on where we've been with our challenges, because of course Johnny, who complained the most about the challenges that were given, he actually finished his challenge easily faster than Perry and myself, and that was to use a primer plan and enjoy it and get some good photographs on digital, which he did. Yeah, he complained a lot to say that he wasn't enjoying it, but he did. He enjoyed it, and his photos were great. My challenge was to use a Tessar, and it was a struggle to start off with. And then, as you may recall, a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that I had picked up, or rather used, my friend's Contax AX. That's Brian Truman of the Six Towns Darkroom, and I enjoyed it that much I went out and bought my own. And more to the point, I found that using his 45mm f2.8 pancake Tessar on the AX was just great. It was just great fun. So I thought, well, there you go, this is my challenge, and I'll go out and I will use it. And when the camera arrived, it was described as, it was meant to be brand new in box, and it wasn't. It was very good condition, but it wasn't the condition that it was described as. So I got in touch with the seller, said as much, and we did a deal that as long as the camera worked, that I would keep the camera and have a partial refund. And I was happy with the refund, and so I just needed to shoot the roll of film. And then where things sort of went wrong there was, I was thinking, well, this gives me about 6 days to or 5 days to shoot a roll of film, and I then realised that actually was almost no time at all, and I needed to use a roll of new film because I didn't want to use anything that was expired to do a camera test. And the only thing I got was some Pobean 100, and it was a 36 exposure film, and the last thing I wanted to do was just fire off a few shots and bin the rest of the film. So now I've finished that roll of film, and I've not posted any pictures from it, and there's a reason why I haven't posted any pictures in any of the Facebook groups, and that was because whilst I was in this process, M from Emulsive got in touch with me because he'd seen a couple of things I'd done with an AX, and he said, I've just written an article, and he sent over a draft copy of it, and it's all about the history of the Contax AX. And the plan was that he was going to put it out this week. And from that conversation and from the experience I just had with shooting this roll of film, I decided that I'd write a small article for Emulsive, and that is going to be coming out this week as well. So M's review and history of the Contax AX is going to be coming out probably tomorrow. And if you're watching in black and white, that's Tuesday the 6th of August. And then with a bit of luck, sometime later this week, I'll finish my article along with the shots I took from this single roll of film and the story behind it. So the main point is I had great fun using the camera, but more to the point, I had great fun using that Tessar, and I got some results that I'm very, very pleased with. Arguably, I could have got them with many of the lenses because I was stopping them down, or maybe I was shooting at 2.8, which you can do that with other lenses, but it was just good fun. It was a small lens on a big fat camera, and I really enjoyed it. So that was pretty much my previous week in lenses.
Nice. Yeah. I saw a picture of the camera with the lens, and it actually looks nice. It looks different.
Different is the word.
It definitely looks different.
Very different. But hey, if it works, it works. Yeah.
So you couldn't have just cheated and done this quick and dirty and gone out and put it on some stupid digital camera and got some pictures out there?
Well, I've done it. I've tried it on a stupid digital camera.
Okay.
And so, as people may recall, I've owned this lens before, and I bought it specifically in the hope that, well, this must be the good Tessar, and it just didn't do anything for me at all. But when I put it on a camera that it was designed to work on, it seemed to come alive. And I don't really know why, it's just, but it did, because it was a lens that just didn't seem to make sense when I put it onto my Sony. One, it's a pancake lens sitting on a big adapter, which is always a bit of an issue in itself. And, but when I've never really been a fan of pancake lenses, but then again, I've only ever been using pancake lenses on digital. So, I might have to review that thought process about, when you do put a lens that's designed to work on a camera, then it can come across and work differently, even if it's completely subjective. I mean, is it doing a better job? No, not really, but it just feels like it belongs, and there's just that harmony between the lens and the camera that I really enjoyed.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah. It makes a difference if you combine the lens with the right camera. It has a different feeling.
Sure does.
I shoot the Sony, especially with long glass, and it just feels different when you put a lens on its native, daddy or mommy camera. It gives you a different vibe.
Yeah.
So I agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, but that's not to say, of course, that all lenses always feel better on their native system. I think there are many. Well, I've never really given it any thought up until this week. So I've clearly enjoyed using Olympus lenses, Contax lenses, Canon lenses, whatever on my Sony or on a Micro Four Thirds, and they felt very much at home on them. But it was just that different, that this lens just felt wrong on digital, that just felt right on its native system. So that was a bit of an eye opener for me there.
Yeah.
Actually, and one other thing before we move on to the next part, and seeing that we're talking about pancake lenses, the Konica that's going to be heading over to Perry, which he's going to enjoy using, and then we're going to rip it out of his hands and give away. That's now been cleaned, and I took it to John to repair it for me. John's the camera repair guy that I use, and he took it apart while I was there, give it a wipe, and then he saw this speck that needed a bit more work, and he was a little bit deeper into the lens, and he went the extra mile, and he worked out how to disassemble it, and got the element, and then started to rub it to try and get rid of the speck, and it just wouldn't go anywhere, and then he realised it was a lens bubble.
That's great.
You hear that, Barry? You hear that? You're in your car, you're driving, it's a lens, it's a bubble.
Yeah.
It's a bubble, Perry. Be careful, you have a bubble in your lens.
But it won't be Perry's lens for long, but he's going to enjoy it while he's got it. But that was interesting in itself, because I mean, I've come across lens bubbles many times, but they're usually on old German glass or Soviet glass. I don't think I've got one. I've got one in a Sonar 105 2.5 as well. I just remembered it, which I must admit, when I got that, I thought to myself, hold on a second, didn't we have Bob Rotoloni telling us that they were all individually checked, and then they just dropped things into a bin because they did this if they had things like lens bubbles and things like that? Well, I think I got the lens that was picked out of the bin. It works well, but it does have a lens bubble towards the rear of the lens as well, which is particularly annoying. But there you go. So, but yeah, I never, other than that particular one, it's. I mean, that Nikon's quite an old lens anyway. But I think the Hexanon 41.8 we were talking about, that's probably an 80s lens, I'm thinking. So I'm surprised that there was a lens bubble in a relatively modern lens like that.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah. Well, it does, and somebody will be winning it in a couple of months or so.
Yeah, the bubble lens. And actually, on the subject of that, I think we should start to ask people about how we're actually going to give that lens away, because we struggle a little bit on competitions, because we don't really want to do photo competitions and then spend a long time describing photographs on a podcast. But yeah, we do actually struggle to come up with ways to actually give things away. So be more than happy to hear anybody's suggestions of for the giving of the Konica away, or any other future competitions as well. So if anybody's got any bright ideas on that one, then I'm all ears. Okay, so talking about emails and getting in touch with us and stuff, we've got a couple of emails to do. Both of these emails are actually from last week, one of which we should have read out last week, but due to an administrative error, in other words, I screwed up with the copying and pasting.
Well said.
Yeah, I managed to copy the same question into our notes, and there should have been two questions. So we're going to do that question, and we also have a second question which we did talk about last week, but we just realised, this is way too big to do in this show. So should we do the missing question, which also has an expert answer from Perry in the form of some audio as well.
Yeah. Do we want to do that? This is the one from Daniel in Berlin, yes?
That's right. This was he wrote us two emails, and we actually read out the second email, and this is actually the first email. So sorry about that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do Daniel from email. Daniel from Berlin. He says, hello, classic lenses aficionados. I've been in bed for the past 4 days with bronchitis and discovered your podcast. I've since listened to some 15 episodes, and somehow he survived, apparently, his bronchitis. He says, I love how inept your discussions are. A perfect companion to Sunny 16, which I would describe as broad or casual in a good way. So while listening to Johnny and Perry ramble on about the Topcor S, I actually found one attached to a Leiatax body. Turns out the camera had a full CLA by a guy who just does Barnax. Long story short, if I sell the Leiatax, I've ended up with a free Topcor S50 f2, my first and only 50mm M39. Doubt I will need another. Although there is next to zero information on the web about Topcon in English, apart from a few blurbs on RFF, there's plenty to be found in Japanese. Here, for example, is the page from Topcon Club, which deals with the 3 versions of the 50 F2, and there's a link provided there. Mine is the second model, the brass/black one, which is considered by Japanese sites as the best out of the 3, although, as always, that's highly subjective. I'd love to pick up the all-black aluminum one, too, and do some tests in the future. I've also managed to snag a mint CLA'd Petri CCS 2.8 for under $100, which, unlike the 1.9 planar Johnny has, comes with a Tessar lens attached. So yes, keep on keeping on, and thank you for making my week laid up in bed a pleasant one. Greetings from Berlin, Daniel.
Hello. Just jumping in here on Daniel's email from Berlin, where he talks about the Topcor S lenses. First of all, get well soon, Daniel. Hope you're feeling better. But secondly, on the Topcor S lenses, this is my favorite 50mm LTM lens. There's no secret of that. And there is a lot of confusion about the different versions, because Topcor only made a few lenses in LTM, but there are a lot of different versions of some of them. The ones that are designated Topcor S specifically are the 50mm lenses with a biotar design. 3 of them are f2, and then there's a very rare one that is the Topcor S 5cm f1.8. That one's really hard to find. If any of you see one or find one, just please sell it to me. But for the f2 version, the 3 versions, the version 1 is the all-silver chrome one. The version 2, which Daniel has, is black and chrome. And then the third one is black, which is the version that I have and the version that I think both Johnny and Hamish Gill have. So there are a lot of conflicting reports online about differences in quality between the 3. Now, Jamie cites a Japanese website, Topcon Club, which claims version 2 is the best, version 3 is roughly the same, version 1 is a little bit weaker. I've read reports here in Hong Kong that version 3 is the best, version 1 is the second best, and version 2 is the weakest. It's inconsistent, and I think it might depend on, which one you get. But from my experience, having tried all 3, they're pretty much the same. There might be slight coating differences between the early and late ones, but I couldn't say for sure. Now, the key differences between the 3 versions, though, is, number 1, the build. The first version is all brass and it's a little bit heftier. The latest version, the version 3 that I have, has a bit more aluminium in it. So it's a little bit lighter, but not by a ton. But the biggest differences, I think, are in the handling, where the earlier versions have an infinity lock and a slightly longer focus throw. Whereas the version 3 that I have, that's my favorite version because the focus throw is really smooth. It's really, really short. It's about a 90 degrees focus throw, and there's no infinity lock. The other notable difference is that the version 3 only has aperture clicks in full stops, whereas the version 1 and the version 2, they have third stop partial aperture clicks. At the end of the day, they will all perform pretty similarly, so I would make the choice if you're going to get one of these based on the handling. The version 3 is the most common by far, and it is my favorite, but I think when you're buying one of these lenses, the most important thing is to pay attention to the condition, because as I'm sure Johnny will attest to, finding one is tough, but finding one that's good is even tougher. So that's how kind of I've ended up with 2 of them. One is pretty beat up, but optically still performs fine, and the other one is near mint, and I don't use that one as much. I kind of keep it in the cupboard for safekeeping. But as long as you find a good one, pick the version that looks best to you or handles best to you, and then you're good to go. It's an amazing lens. Highly recommend it.
Right, well, again, sorry for not reading that question out last week. And we had a quick chat about this question. The three hosts here today have got absolutely nothing else to add to that. If I'm correct, is that right, Johnny and Eric?
Well, I think
one question. I have one question. What does the thing cost?
Well,
I have no idea. I mean, around street price,
I mean, the problem is there's so few of them out there.
Yeah.
So if you do find one, it's gonna be probably at least $300 US.
Okay.
So I
must admit, I did have a quick look on this because I was thinking to myself, oh, let's just check this before we talk about it on the podcast, just in case there's something cheap out there.
Yeah.
But there weren't any. There were no super bargains out there. But yes, you can pay as much as Johnny said there. But yeah, you can pay a fair bit less than that as well. But so say $200 is about the starting point. But there are different versions and so on and so on.
You're gonna pay probably $300 to $500 for a good one. There tends to be the same 5 near mint bullshit, not near mint ones from Japan listed on eBay that are always, in the $400 range or something like that, that nobody who really wants this lens will touch because they're nowhere near as described, which is really obvious. So there's just not a lot of them out there.
Gotcha.
So it takes some doing to find one, and it takes some doing to find a good one, and you're going to probably, pay through the nose for it when you find a good one. So it's a difficult lens to find, and hence there's not a lot of information out there about them. This was the lens that famously Perry, myself, and Hamish had a private kind of chat going where we had made a pact that none of the three of us would talk about this lens on any of the, in the podcast / blogging universe until we all had one, because we didn't want to drive the price up. And we all now have a copy of this lens. Perry has more than one copy of this lens. But yeah, it's difficult to find, and it's one of those things that's going to take some doing to find a good one. So yeah, I believe Perry. I don't really have anything to add other than it is a Biotar by design, which is a bit unusual for an LTM lens in the 50 millimeter range. But Perry is going to talk us through here in his recorded message on the ins and outs of the different models of this lens.
Okay, well, thanks for that, Perry. That's good. Some good clarification there between the different models, and also finishing off with just get one you like the look of that works well for you. Okay, so that's that question. I just realised I did say there were 2 questions, but there is actually another question which I'm not going to make you read out, but it came through just after the last week's podcast from Jonas Lundström, and it's via he sent a link to a photograph on Flickr, and it's very, very difficult for us to actually really discuss what you've sent through to us there, but it's an odd little thing. I'll do my best actually just now, and somebody called Effie to Cruz is the person that's posted this. So we'll post this into the notes, the link to this. But he's produced a diagram with lenses on it, which is it sort of. It gives people a bit of an idea about what certain lenses will actually do in terms of bokeh, and you got busy bubbles, you got most defined bubbles, you got most smooth, most balanced, thin bubbles, light swirl, very swirly, shaped. These are all 50mm lenses, and yes, it's pretty difficult to make too many comments on this, but other than take a look at it, you'll see the link in the notes, and thank you for sending that through, Jonas. So thank you again. So
it has like more flavors than when buying ice cream.
Yeah,
it's like you order your ice cream with little bubble, slightly corrected, and no sugar. One of those. It was tough to understand it. But it's nice. Yeah,
I think the problem to understand it. The problem is that it's somebody's subjective opinion of certain ways that they describe lenses, and that's always what makes talking about lenses quite difficult, because what we see and how we interpret what we see can be quite different from each other. But it's a bit of fun. So take a look at it.
What a nice bridge to the next question.
Yes. So the big question which we didn't cover last week. So do you want to read that one out, Johnny?
Yeah, this is going to be the Nigel Cliff question, correct?
That would be correct, yes.
All right. So it's like become infamous now. The Nigel Cliff question. The Nigel Cliff question is, we've all had a laugh over the past few weeks about Perry's definition of budget lenses, but for the ultimate quality on adapted lenses, do we have a go-to to the upper ranges of the main manufacturers, Canon, Nikon, Olympus, Minolta, Pentax, plus Perry's really expensive stuff, or can we with care get top quality results from what the rest of the human race would class as budget? Are there any real budget under £50 lenses that can give results indistinguishable from the expensive glass in the classic lenses world? The thing is, I'm not sure I still even understand exactly what this question is. And I think that's why we're still talking about it. But we're going to try to figure it out right now, aren't we, guys?
We are.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Having you read that question out to how when I read the question myself, I'm there thinking, actually, that's not what I've been thinking about for the last.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. But my initial interpretation was, is there a cheap, and where we're defining cheap as like £50, $60, that kind of range that can compete with something that's really top drawer, and I think that when I say top drawer, I'm talking about like a Sigma Art lens or a G Master Sony or some of the Canon L lenses and so on. So we're talking about modern optics with big price tags. That was what was going around in my mind. And then there was also another clarification in this. I put this. I don't normally do this, but I decided that I think I needed a little bit of help to answer this question. So I put the question into Photography with Classic Lenses and also into the Classic Lenses podcast Facebook group, and asking people for their thoughts. And Nigel then went on to clarify his question, because I wasn't the only person that was thinking about these super modern lenses, and Christopher J. May made a really strong case and pretty much echoed the thoughts I would have made. So that's worth taking a look at, and I think that was in our podcast Facebook group. But Nigel clarified that he wasn't talking about brand new modern lenses. He was actually talking about top quality classic lenses, and the inspiration for the question was that one of his favorite lenses is the 100mm Olympus f2.8. Really likes that lens, very impressed with its performance, and it's a good all-round lens. And he's currently borrowed an OM 100mm f2, and he's been blown away by it because there is quite a staggering difference in let's call it image quality, whatever that means, between the 2.8 and the f2. It's not just the fact that it's a faster lens; it's also it's immeasurable. Well, actually, it won't be immeasurably sharper because it's you can define these things, but it's much sharper, and it's got better contrast and all of those things you would associate with a top modern lens. You're getting out of this Olympus 100mm f2. Difference is though that lens, the f2 lens, is about 5 times the price. It's also quite rare, but it's a really, really good lens, and it's actually a relatively modern lens by OM designed lenses as well. So that was the inspiration, a little bit of clarification there. And Eric, you've actually been in touch with Nigel since then, and you've got a bit more feedback to add, I believe.
Well, my impression, and again, I asked Nigel to come up with some glass that I could, better understand where the question comes from. And he, as I would do, comes with a list of lenses that he really likes. And I understand. Then I for myself, came a little bit to the conclusion that we all like the lenses we have, for the simple reason that that's why we have them. And inherent to our hobby and our passion and the use of classic lenses, therefore often not new, therefore cheaper, we are always on the lookout for the best bargain, the best rendering, and the most pleasing rendering. And then it becomes very, very subjective. And that's where the questions really started to come along, as I hear from you too, Simon. What can one answer to it? I mean, is a Leica M Summicron version 5, can I get the same thing, same rendering and the same IQ and all that on a lens that I pay 1/10 of the price? And that's where I don't know. There's simply questions I don't have an answer to. And I think it's up to us to like it and to see whether the price is worth it to use it. And one of the things we do, we buy lenses, we try them, we keep them, therefore we like them, or we sell them. Now, the new lens he gets in is more expensive. And what you often see is people go from the basic first classic lenses, which I could say is like Helios 44, a Nikon 50 2.0, sometimes non-AI, so the lenses that you can get for 30, 40, 50 US, and slowly grow to their own liking and taste, which also asks for more investment. And it's still very, very subjective. Now, my first impression would be, can you get the same from a 50 pound lens as you can get from a 800 pound lens? I don't think so. But but I know Johnny doesn't agree with me there. So what is his point of view on that? Can you get the same for less money?
I'm still trying to figure out Nigel's question, to be quite honest. It's like reading the Second Amendment or something. It's just like it contradicts itself. I just can't. I'm like diagramming breaking it into paragraphs and trying to figure out what he's actually asking here. If he's asking, I'm just reading it again. I mean, for ultimate quality on adapted lenses, do we have to go for the upper ranges of the main manufacturers, or can we, with care, get top quality results from the rest? I mean, okay, he calls out Canon, Nikon, Olympus, Minolta, Pentax. Well, what else is there? I mean, I'm not. I guess okay. Other than all those brands that he's mentioned, which is most of what's out there, I mean, all I can think of it, he's talking about like generic things like T-mount lenses or something, which were adaptable to multiple mounts, some of which are excellent. So yeah, maybe that's possible. I mean, I have T-mount lenses, especially in the 100 and 105 territory, that are, competitive to what's considered one of the best lenses ever, which is the Nikon 105 f 2.5. I mean, there are T-mount lenses I bought for $5 that are on par nearly with that. So I guess it's possible if that's what he's asking. You just have to dig for him.
I think let's just take it back to the clarification that he gave about, or rather the inspiration, when he was talking about Olympus, in particular the 100 2.8 versus the 100 f2, and they're both top manufacturer lenses, but one is significantly better and more expensive than the other, and you can see where the money's gone in terms of the how they deliver. And actually, I just want to just go as a bit of an aside because when we touched upon this. Because Ricardo knew that it was only there for the one, and he wanted to answer this one. And, he wanted to get his teeth into it. And one of his points was, well, the Nikon 105 2.5, and I said to him, you can't get one of those in that budget. And a couple of days ago, he emailed me a link from the sale and say, there you go, there's one. It's $60, and the glass is fine, and there's no fungus, there's no haze. I mean, the thing looks like it's been rolled down the street, but it would work perfectly, and it would do. It would take I'm sure it would take a photograph every bit as good as a mint one. It's three times the price. One thing I will say to you, certainly with the definition that I was initially thinking of, at least, that as good as that lens is, it's a lens that appeals to us as classic lens users for some unique and tangible character that the lens has, but it's not. If you want to compare that to a modern Nikon 105, is it a 1.4 they've brought out? Is it a 1.8? I can't quite remember. But if you do a side by side assessment of those two lenses, and you do it in a scientific way, not in an artistic way, the whole lens is going to get blown out the water. It just can't compete in terms of the corrected and the sharpness of that modern lens. So in my this is where I'm sort of differing from Eric's definition of viewing these lenses now, because I'm viewing a lens like that Nikon has been a great lens, undoubtedly, but it's not. It's you're going more into the realms of what's your favourite lenses rather than which are the ultimate performers on a budget.
Yeah, but again, it's what you look for in your photographs. Last week, the lenses that were mentioned were the Nikon, as you just said, the Helios 13 blade, Minolta 45 and 50 2.0, Jupiter 11, the older versions, Jupiter 8, the earlier versions. Now, one of the remarks you made, Simon, that was spot on, is you also talk about consistency versus sample variation. Because I know of Jupiter 8 lenses that are absolutely stunning, and you can't distinguish between it and a Zeiss Sonner that you would pay 400 or 500 euros or pounds or whatever. But you don't take into account your sample variation, which is huge. Other lenses that I came up with is like a Pentax 1.7. Is it a sexy lens? No, it's not. Is it good? Yes. A Nikon 35 2.8. Is it a sexy lens? No. Is it good? It's very good. I know yourself, you're using the 28mm 2.8 from Nikon, and it's a fantastic lens. And it is not expensive. Again, for me, I have my set of lenses that are for let's call it work. If I am making a documentary or stuff like that, and I would like to sell it or part of it, I would use Zeiss glass. I would use Leica glass. Then, if I would use fun, I would go to all kinds of stuff. So, it all depends a little bit.
I was just going to say, you mentioned the. Actually, no. Was it 28 or 35 Nikon that you mentioned there?
I mentioned the 35 2.8, and I mentioned the 28mm 2.8.
That's it. Yeah, it was the
both great.
Yeah, I was going to say that the 28 2.8 that I have is the AIS, and I don't think we can count that as being a cheap lens. It's the CRC version of it. Although, but I think there's certainly a point with the 50mm lenses in general, we've said this. I don't think we've said this phrase for a while, but there are no bad 50mm lenses.
No.
That's not entirely true because there are some.
There are,
but generally speaking, they're excellent. And you've mentioned the Pentax lens, which is pretty much on a par with the. As I think you said, the 51.7, the Minolta equivalent is a good lens, as is the Yashica and the Zeiss and so on. A lot of those lenses are creeping up in price, although most of those are still very affordable. And I've mentioned this lens before. I'm not sure if I called it a sleeper lens once, but there's the. I think I never know whether to call it chin-on or shin-on, but the 50mm K-mount lens, 51.7, in my opinion, is superior both to the Pentax and to the Minolta. I've never tested it head-to-head against the Yashica or the Zeiss, but I think that's probably the best cheap 50mm lens out there, certainly in terms of outright sharpness, and it can be picked up very, very cheaply because nobody really cares about chin-on, do they?
Well, Mike Nova got me a 51.4 from the States. That is very cheap. You know, it's not 50. Let's say it's 70 or 75 at 1.4. Absolutely stunning. You know. Again, there's for me, I have my shooting stuff that I need to rely on, that is, you know, that can take a hit, that I have insured, you know, and I have my fun stuff. Now a Helios 100 f2, as you have one too, Simon, is for me fun. Can be a great lens, but it's fun. Now, if you really go into the nitty gritty, is there at the same price? Maybe there is, maybe there's not. Now, can you see the difference? That is a totally different question. Because how many people are going to see the difference between one and the other, between the Leica 50mm and a, let's say, 200 or 100 US dollar or euro or pound lens? I don't know. Certain not on Facebook because the resolution wouldn't take that. So even there, you know, you have to really go into Flickr and get some high-res shots of it. I'm not into pixel peeping, and I don't think that everybody is.
We certainly shouldn't be.
No, we shouldn't be. I think so, you know. But I think composition of the picture, what is happening in the picture, the way you shoot it. I mean, those are all far more important than you know, edge sharpness. Yeah.
Another thing to take into consideration about when we're talking about a modern lens being better than an older lens, and we are predominantly talking about sharpness, because at the end of the day, that's always the thing that it's easiest to make. Let's call it a subjective decision on the quality of a lens is to pixel peep, and you can see something that's in focus and zoom in on it and just see how much detail you can see there. How useful that really is in real life is open to debate. I mean, I'm sure there are some people that really could use and do use extremely high resolving lenses to do whatever it is that they do. But I would suggest that those people there's a very small number of people that actually need that kind of resolution. I'm struggling to think who those people are, by the way, but I'm sure those people have got to be out there. But I remember doing a test, and I've mentioned this again before, on 28mm lenses, and some lenses were definitely out-resolving other lenses, and the Sigma mini wide 28mm Sigma mini wide 2, when I did the pixel peeping on that, it was definitely it could not keep up with a Biogon, the Nikon, a Zeiss, and all of those kind of things, which are easily capable of out resolving it. But as soon as you actually just looked at the picture itself, and you're thinking, I like that.
Yeah.
And it had something else in the photograph that was almost missing in these other photographs. So it is that thing about, what is it you want to actually get out of a shot? Are you looking at? Do you want to just look at it in infinite detail, or do you just want to just look and enjoy the feel of the shot? And I think most of us who are into classic lenses, that's probably what we want.
Well, 2 weeks ago you had Isabel on the podcast, right? Isn't she the best example of somebody that said, I want to influence my work. I want to influence it the way I want it to be. And as I remember, she used a Leica lens and a Leica body even, and she got rid of it because she prefers what the end result is instead of the best equipment to make it. That was my take on it. Now, we as collectors, we have, I think, two sides. One, we like the stuff. We want it, we feel it, we play with it, we enjoy it, we order it, whatever. Two, we would like to have the best for the least amount of money, and that's also part of the fun. That's why we like it. That's why we listen to podcasts and we read the forums and we publish our pictures, and we're proud of it, and we should be. And then there's the third part, which is for me very important, is budget. Some people can afford bigger budgets and can dedicate more money to lenses, and other people just cannot because they have 16 children and 3 wives and alimony and God knows what. It's the way it is.
You mean like Ken Rockwell?
Yeah, something like that. But I have 2 growing up teenagers, and before I can buy any lens, they need to eat. And I can find whatever. If I find a Leica M, whatever, at 0.95 for 2,000 euros, which is a great deal, I'm not going to buy it. It's not going to happen. So there's a lot of things in the matrix, and sharpness is the easiest one, I think. Now, then again, there's things like, is it shooting on film? Is it shooting on digital? Is it shooting product photography? Is it for modeling? Is it for street work? Is it for documentary photo? I mean, there's so much, and that makes it all so much fun. That's why you have a great hobby and a great way of trying to make beautiful pictures. The way I see it, and the question is valid, and I think the question comes down to what we all do, and we probably never will answer it, because then our hobby will be done. We have the best one for the least amount of money, and that's it. So that's a way of looking at it too.
Yeah, it's interesting. You just mentioned there about lenses for model shots. I mean that's probably certainly one of the largest. That's an area where there's the largest difference between an old school lens and a modern digital lens, because they were, even in the day, they were designed to be soft and flattering.
Yeah.
And whereas now you buy an 85mm f 1.4 or whatever it is, whether it be by Samyang or one of the the major manufacturers, and they're just incredibly sharp. And yes, you've always, as people will say that buy these lenses, they'll say, well, you can take sharpness out of an image, but you can't add it in, which is true.
Yeah.
But I just see so many portrait shots that just are too sharp, in my opinion, at least, anyway. And there's a question behind that about what makes a good photograph and what makes a good model photograph. And is it a case that the technology, modern technology, is driving sharpness and therefore driving these ever sharper portrait shots, or are we losing something? Because, like I say, it was a deliberate decision in the past to make portrait lenses soft.
It's a very valid point. And don't forget, today we also live in the age of Photoshop and Lightroom and digital darkrooms. So we can do a lot. And then you go into a question of what, the old style or the new style. I don't know. What I do know is that a 1.4 85 mil or 105 Sony whatever will set me back 2,500 euros. I just don't have it. It just stops there. And a lot of people don't have it, and they do want to be involved in photography. And for those people, which is like 99% or 95%, whatever, classic lenses is absolutely fantastic. And there's some great bargains to be found, and so much history. Look at Cheyenne, who's giving us history on optics, on glass, and all that stuff. It's fantastic. And everybody has a little place to show their new, in French we say trouvaille, the thing they found, they're proud of. I am proud of. When I buy a new lens, I'm proud. I want to show it. I show it to my kids. They go, "Okay, you're nice." I show it to my wife. She says, "How much did it cost?" I said, "Darling, that's not important. It's rendering nice and it's so sharp." She says, "I don't care." I mean, that's basically it. Yeah. And we share it amongst us. And I showed Johnny. I bought a Zeiss 21 mil, and I was so proud. And I sent out a message to Johnny. And I say, look what I got. And he says, "It's great." And we enjoy ourselves, and we are in contact, and we speak with people.
I was just going to say, Johnny, we've just spoken at length now about this question. Have you understood it yet?
I'm still kind of lost in this question. I'm still kind of, and I even went back. So I'm really well prepared for this week's show because I have my notes right here from episode 59 with the date on the top of 3/10/19. So it'll be March 10th of 2019. Now, the only reason I have this still on my desk is I've been using it as a beer mat, basically, under my glass every week. So it has all kinds of water stains on it. But we went at great length to go through budget lenses of various focal lengths, which you can see in the notes of episode 59, which we recorded, let us note, not once but twice that day. This is the infamous lost episode that was then re-recorded. But we have recommendations for budget lenses for basically every focal length from 17 millimeters to 300.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of budget lenses by the manufacturers mentioned right here: Canon, Nikon, Olympus, Minolta, Pentax, right? I don't think that there doesn't need to be further budget alternatives in some of these categories because there's plenty from those makers available. So I don't know. I don't know. I feel like the answers are out there. 50 millimeter alone. There's a slew of budget lenses with names like Pentax, Nikon, Canon, right? You can find them. So I sometimes I feel like it's almost like a quest for the Holy Grail. Like there must be something out there that's even better and even cheaper. And I don't know that that's the case. I mean, the question about the Topcon stuff is a great example of that. It's like the whole reason I think, Perry and me and Hamish and some other people, I know Robbie picked one up. The whole reason it seems like we freak out about these things is it's like all the other answers have already been found.
Yeah.
And so if there's that one answer out there still that hasn't been discovered yet, it's like the one everybody wants, right? And I think that's a large attraction, quite honestly, with the Topcor is, I mean, it really is a uniquely rendering lens, but when you get right down to it, how much different is it than some of the other lenses you could get? It's really splitting hairs, So I feel like it becomes more of a quest because of it's Odysseus, you know what I mean? It's a quest for the sake of the quest almost. It's not to necessarily find something that's going to be so incredibly better than what's already known. And I feel like there's a lot of known things out there that are really wonderful. So that's the conclusion.
It's fun. It is a lot.
It's fun. It's yes. Right. So it's more about It's more about the pursuit at that point than it is about that there's something cheaper.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I agree. absolutely. I think it's the fun. It's the whole voyage towards it. It's the development.
It's what you've said, Eric. It's the whole. It becomes a whole culture around the quest.
Yeah. The Topcon, and you want it, and you keep it a secret because you want it so bad, and then you have it, and you feel like, and suddenly it's empty. You need something new.
Yeah, exactly.
So now you have the Texas Leica, and you need the other lens because without the other lens, you cannot survive.
Right.
This is the way it is.
Yeah, totally.
And we all have it. Yeah.
And I love that Topcon lens, but I'll be quite honest, the lens, I shot a few rolls on it, but I've kind of just gone back to carrying my Canon 51.8, which I still, put out there as the budget LTM 50 millimeter lens, because yes, you can get them for around $100. You can.
Yes, you can. Yeah.
Yes, you can. So, so what it came down to was, the Topcon's probably got a bit of an edge on it, image quality wise at the wider apertures, and maybe a little more pop, but the Canon 51.8, it's almost indistinguishable. And what it came down to for me is I don't want to carry two sets of filters. I mean, it's like that. It becomes that simple. Is I don't want to carry a special set of filters for a different size lens when I could carry one set of filters for, two lenses that are in my bag. So, it sometimes that unicorn, you find it and then you maybe even don't want to use it all the time because it took you so long to find it. Well, what if something happens to it? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yes.
I mean, I've got lenses like that. I don't use because I don't want to mess them up. It took me so long to find them. So
I think that's typical. And we will always be on the lookout for more. And we will always be, and that's part of the whole quest, as you call it, Johnny, and rightfully so. And that's why we keep on posting and keep on looking and keep on searching and keep on spending and selling and whatever it is. And it gives us gratification in finding it and testing it and using it and making pictures with it. And it's a fantastic and great way of having fun. And some of us might even sell some of their pictures and others, they don't care. And others do flowers and they only do flowers. And that's great too. The point of Simon where he says, our lens is too sharp. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. For one, it is. It all comes down to what you want to do with it. Now, if you're a photojournalist, you walk around with a Nikon D5 and two lenses. That's it, guys. That's it. I don't see him walk around with a Leica M. It's just not happening. And if you have to feed your family as a photojournalist, it's a different world. And photographers making their living by creating art, there are not too many. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, right.
That's fair too. I mean, there's not, and the ones that are, they all use either sponsored stuff, or they use the very expensive stuff that is also sponsored because whatever, they all want them to use their stuff, of course.
Yeah.
I mean that started with Cartier-Bresson as well. I say started with it, but he was certainly they were supplying his gear.
Oh yes, and Zeiss was supplying him with anything he wanted.
Yeah, it's interesting. You just, especially where you were talking then, Johnny, and yourself, Eric. There's a. It seems like we're all on a bit of a journey with classic lenses, and I'm not too sure at what stage I'm at in terms of percentage, but I know that the lenses that I'm now interested in that I don't own is very small, relatively speaking.
I feel that, Simon. I mean, I'm like, I don't buy a lot of lenses anymore. I feel like I've got pretty much what I need because I've settled in on a couple of systems that I use. I find it much more. My interest is more that there are other formats I want to shoot, and so it's entire camera and lens systems that I'm interested in. You know what I mean? It's kind of like this Fujica from Robbie. I mean, I'd been looking at one of those for quite a while just because there's not a lot else like that. I mean, it's a 6x9 rangefinder, so how many things are there out there like that? So to me, it's more that I find I struggle with, there are film formats like 645. I think I have not yet found the 645 camera I'd really love to be carrying around with me all the time, or the panoramic or whatever. So that's where I find I spend more of my interest these days and then the lenses are a byproduct of that, because obviously if you have the camera and the system, then you're going to get the lenses for that camera and that system, right? But it's for me, it's now almost more about I don't need anything else really in 35 millimeter. My gosh, I have more than I can shoot right now. But there's always other things I want to try camera system wise. And then, you want to see what the lenses are like that go with those systems.
Johnny, you want a secret?
Yes, please.
I mean, just between us. I'm starting to sell.
Yeah, I have too a little bit. It's crazy.
Oh my! I thought it would never happen.
Yeah.
And I don't tell her about it.
Yeah.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
I'm between you and I. Yeah.
Between us.
I finally sold my. I had it at. I don't like to sell things person to person because unless it's someone I really trust, I don't trust. I'm sorry. I have too much investment and I have too little margin for getting ripped off to do eBay. So I don't do that. But I do sell things to people I know and trust. And it's equipment that I know is right and that I've used quite a bit. But I did finally let go of my Mamiya RZ67 because I really only bought it to shoot Polaroids. I didn't buy it to put film through it. I bought it for Polaroid backs, and it just became too much to have around. And they've gone up so much in value. It was just stupid for me to hold on to it. So I finally sold it, and I honestly don't miss it. And sort of the same story when I traded my my Nikon S2 for the Batman Bessa
blue one,
R.
the blue one.
Yeah, the blue Bessa R, because I wasn't using the Nikon because it didn't mesh with my style of shooting really well, and I really needed another 35 rangefinder. So, I think you settle in ultimately the things that are the best fit, and it's still fun to chase the unicorns.
But isn't it fun to see that the final, maybe one of the final answers to the question is that everybody's developing. Look at Simon. You are now into large format.
Yeah, right.
Johnny is exploring, big format. I'm shooting a context that I didn't want to shoot. And we all start, finding our own little niche. And I think that's great. And it keeps us up to speed and looking for different ways of making the most beautiful images that we can share with everybody else.
Right.
Well, for a moment then, I thought we were all heading to a point where we're settling down, we're comfortable with what we have and so on. But actually, no, we just want to go somewhere else now and do it all over again.
Oh yes, absolutely.
No, there's always something else. Yeah.
Oh no! It should never stop. No way, no.
Well, I can let everybody into a secret as well. I'm also selling some of my own gear as well, and that's largely because I'd recently decided that as far as 35mm is concerned, I'm pretty much going all in on contacts, as in modern Japanese contacts, I should say, rather than the old stuff that Eric loves, and that just goes back to my association with contacts going back many years, and also using those lenses on digital as well. But that's now making me look at the lenses that I have in my collection with different eyes now, because there are some lenses in there that won't fit onto my contacts, and I have been putting some weird and wonderful things on my AX in particular. Seeing that it's contacts is actually quite an adaptable system, so you can put quite a few other systems on it. So it's particularly fun with the AX because you can turn anything into an AF camera, which is just an AF lens, which is just good fun. but I'm now looking at some lenses that would do the same thing as the Zeiss lenses, and I'm thinking, well, why am I keeping that? And so they're going to go, unless they've got something that they can do for me on digital that I'm just not going to be able to get out of the contacts, because let's face it, there are times where you want a certain look and you're only going to get that on digital. You want the convenience of getting it on digital, and that would therefore mean that, I don't know, say my Petzval 58, I've got no intention of selling that, because there are times where I can if I'm a bit bored or I just want some inspiration, I can go into the cupboard, I can pick that lens out, and whether it goes onto the contacts or onto my Sony, it will put me in the mood and I can go out and actually use it. But where I've got other lenses which are just good quality lenses, but they don't actually do anything particularly unique, then I'm asking myself, why am I keeping this? Why? I mean, sometimes you've got the sentimental value of things, but there are just so many lenses that I have which I've just got because they're nice, but I just simply don't use them. So it just makes sense for those to go now, and whether that actually funds other Carl Zeiss gear, which probably it will, is another thing, really.
And going back to Nigel's question, some of the lenses I definitely keep are bought for less than £50. So they do have something over the lenses that I sell that I bought for maybe 250 or 300 euros.
Same here. Totally.
So you see, it is not the sharpness. It is not even the sentimental value. But there's lenses that I keep, and I bought them for 25 euros.
Yeah.
I have old Jupiter lenses that I keep. I have weird stuff in the exact amount that I keep. Because, like you say, Simon, they do something for me that the others that I'm going to sell do not. And probably the ones I sell are better in rendering and sharpness and all that stuff. But they're going to go, because they don't do what I want. And maybe that's the ultimate answer to the question. Maybe.
Well, it's certainly an answer, and I'm quite happy to end it on that point, certainly.
What was the question again?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's. I think we've at least attempted to answer that question. And I'm not entirely sure where we're going to go next, actually.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, what's coming up for everybody? I got a few things I can mention. I not to slip into wrap up mode, but we could talk about things where we have plans that we're going to do. We usually talk about things we have done, but I feel like there's so many things I want to do, and it's summer, and I want to get them done before the summer is over. I said last summer it was going to be half frame August, and I was going to spend all of August shooting my half frame cameras, because I never feel like I ever get to shoot them enough, and it's August again. And I didn't do it last August, and it's, I want it to be half frame August again. So there's that. I feel like I have so many things I want to do and no time to do them. It's driving me crazy.
Well, there is something that I'm going to be taking part in, which actually I wouldn't mind a bit of advice on. I'm part of a photographers collective. It's called the North Staffordshire Photographers Collective North Staffordshire, and they and we, because I'm also a member of the Six Towns Darkroom, so there's a collaboration between the Six Towns Darkroom and the collective, and we're going to be launching a project. It's not launched yet, so here's a sneaky preview, and because it's going to be in association with the Six Towns Darkroom, it's going to be film based, and it's when it was suggested, we all thought, oh, what a good idea. That's good. Let's do that. And the theme is using black and white film, and the theme is high contrast. And so thinking, yeah, that's good. We've all seen high contrast images that can look really, really effective, and they make you look at your light and shadows and things like that differently. But doing it on film is not the same as doing it digitally, because when you do it on film, especially if you're going to print in the darkroom, it's a different thing again. Now you can certainly shoot on film, scan it with a scanner or DSLR, and put it into Lightroom, say, and then just play with the contrast sliders, the whites and the blacks, and you can get a very easily you can turn something into a high contrast image. But when you're shooting on film, that's a little trickier, because usually with high contrast, that means that the highlights are pretty much non-existent. Yeah, they're just blown, and the shadows are very, very deep blacks with very little shadow detail in there. So when you're actually exposing an image, usually well, there are different ways to expose an image, but let's just say you can expose for the whole scene, so you get a balanced exposure, or you can expose for the highlights, which means you'll have detail in the bright parts, but you'll have very black blacks in the shadows, or vice versa. Expose for the shadows, which will then blow out the highlights in the shot. But I'm a little bit stumped to work out which way to actually expose a roll of film that I'm going to do both to.
What I wonder, Simon, actually, is how high contrast are you talking? Because if you're talking about, I consider almost everything I shoot to be high contrast. But it depends if you're talking about like lith film high contrast, where it's basically blacks and whites and no grays at all. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think, the theme this is going to be some form of exhibition that will appear. So a number of photographs will be up on a wall, and for me, they need to, if you walked in there as a photographer, you would immediately be hit by the fact that these images are high contrast images, and then perhaps not even as a photographer, is just a layperson, if you like, will look at these and say, wow, they're really contrasty images. That's okay. So what that means is a difficult one to define, I guess.
So not, because I consider Ansel Adams to be a very high contrast photographer. I mean, I do. His zone system stuff, I feel like, is extremely high contrast, because he goes from really dark blacks to really bright whites, and to me that's high contrast, right? Yeah. But I don't know if that's what if you're talking about almost like graphic arts.
Well, no, actually, I think I am actually talking about what you just described there, because if I want to do this digitally, I would let's do this the simplest way. There's if you're doing this in Lightroom, you can press the Alt button, and then you can slide the white slider all the way in one direction. You start moving it, and then it will highlight the areas which start getting burnt out, and you can do exactly the same with the black button, and therefore you can see that you're taking that detail out, and that will then give you a high contrast image. But I'm not entirely sure what the best way to achieve that look with film, and then in a dark room.
Yeah, to me that's where I feel like I guess I think about. Even though I don't really make darkroom prints, I still think about making digital images the same way I made darkroom prints. And for me, it starts with film choice and how you expose the film, and then developer choice and how you use the developer. And then so then you've got a negative, right? With a certain contrast profile to it that you've baked in from the start, and maybe even used filters. If you're talking black and white, of course, you maybe used a yellow, orange, red filters to boost the separation of tones to give a greater impression of a higher contrast image. But then, I mean, I did this a lot. I mean, I would work the negative to get it to that place, and then when I went to the darkroom, you would choose your paper, your graded paper. I mean, you could do the same thing with multi-contrast black and white paper, where you pick the right filter that you were going to use. But I always like to do with graded paper. So a grade 2 would be like a lower to normal contrast. A grade 3 would be kind of slightly higher normal contrast. And then grade 4 and 5 would just push the contrast up higher, right? Mm-hmm. So if I wanted a high contrast image, I would basically take my negative, and instead of printing it on a grade 2 paper, I'd print it on a grade 4 paper. And that would just give you, it's almost like the graded paper are contrast profiles that you would pull out of Lightroom. It's the same idea. It's the same exact idea where it's a preset. So a grade 4 or a grade 5 paper is like a preset in Lightroom for higher contrast. Right. And I mean, to me, that's the easiest way to approach it, because you could take a normally processed negative and just print it on different grades of paper, and it's going to change the look of that negative based on the contrast profile of the paper. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah. And the other question now, I mean, we've just been talking about exposure there, although actually not really covered that one too much. I mean, would you recommend just exposing the whole scene, or going in one direction, going for the shadows, all the highlights?
Well, I mean, the conventional wisdom was always exposed for the highlights and develop for the shadows, right? Because you want to retain the highlight detail, which if it's gone, it's sort of gone. If it's blocked up on the negative, it's blocked up and you can't really get it. So you expose to get the high amount of highlight detail you want, and then in development you can pull the shadow detail out by developing shorter or longer, so that you end up with a negative. I think you want a well-balanced negative that you can then work in the darkroom with paper choices, etc. So I mean, I guess that's my thought on it, is how you expose it from the get-go. You can do that. You can expose it to give you a contrast to your image from the beginning, right? If you know that's what you're going for in the end. But I mean, you could also just take a well-developed, balanced image, and then using graded paper or contrast filters, you're going to get a more contrasty image that way. So you haven't kind of blown the detail or blocked the shadows on your negative.
Right.
To give yourself more flexibility. But then again, if you want a super high contrast image, you could just bake it into the negative for sure.
And that also leads to a choice of film. And Eric, right. I was going to say, Eric, what if you were going to go out there and you've used so many different kinds of film and so many expired films and vintage films and stuff. So, what would you go out and pick for to be particularly contrasty film?
I would take expired Orvo film. I would take the NP23 film that is 35, 40 years old, and it just jumps off the paper. I mean, for me, as a low contrast shooter, I am not particularly fond of the film because it gives me too much contrast. And I've actually been looking for a way how I want to shoot it, how I want to use it. I have quite some of it. So Orvo NP55, for instance, is a film that I like better because it has more grays. Now, if I go to NP23 and develop it in, let's say, Rodinal or D76 or Atomal 49, or I tried many. It just blows from the negative. It's like an atomic bomb. So it's boom, and I'm sure there's people that love it. And when you see my pictures that I published, most of them are very, very grayish. Because it's the look I like for the moment. That's what I've always been shooting like that a little bit. So as far as I will send you some Orvo NP23.
Thanks, Eric.
It's not the big format thing, but I can get it in larger formats.
No, I'm more than happy to be shooting at 35.
Yeah, it's 35. I'll send you a couple of rolls and just play with it and see what it does. You need some voodoo to develop it. You can take a membership of our Voodoo College with Mike Novak and Jay Javier and myself. So we can make you an honorary member. That's no problem. But that's what I would do. And again, my knowledge is very limited because I like the low contrast rendering.
I think it's worth just giving a quick shout out to your Facebook group.
We should do that. Yes, we should. Yeah, it's the Vintage Film Shooters group, and I started it 3 and something years ago on a Sunday. I said, let's put up a group, and I call it Vintage Film Shooters. And what we're almost 3,000. We are over 3,000 people there. All shooters of expired film. And we publish pictures that we make, obviously, with the expired film. We show our trophies and what we found and how good we are, and we talk about voodoo. And it's a very nice group. It is, and it's very nice people. We don't have a zillion posts per day. We have 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 a day. And it's a lot of fun. And when you want to go and when you have an expired film that you want to use, every picture, almost every picture, has a little description. This is the year, this is the make, this is how it was developed. So you can actually use it as a giant database of film. And besides the fact that vintage film or expired film is less expensive to shoot, it is also giving you a specific rendering. And so for anybody that would like to join Vintage Film Shooters, Mike Novak is one of the guys with me there, Jay Javier from the Philippines, great guy. And we keep it quiet. It's for distinguished gentlemen and nice ladies and we have a lot of fun. By all means,
it is a good group, and Johnny and I have posted there occasionally as well.
Yes,
along with Dan Goshen as well. He's been putting quite a bit of his stuff in there, which is
very
really
much
good stuff.
Yes, it's great fun, and Daniel Keating, who's a member, he's a walking library of knowledge. Adam Paul, it's his birthday today, so he's a great shooter. Uses vintage film, works a lot in New York, works a lot in Israel. Great photographers. We're talking some top-notch shooters. And it's great. It's fun, and that's what it's all about.
Definitely.
Vintage Film Shooters
on Facebook.
On Facebook, join us. Yeah. It's fun. It's voodoo.
Yeah. Have we got any other things that we want to cover off today?
Yeah, I mean, in some. Let me just touch up on it. We have the month of August is a big month here in Mons, in the Dragon City. Lots of events going on, so I'll be shooting those. Isn't
that just a normal month?
It's a normal month. It's a normal month. We have a huge gathering of military on the end of August. We'll have a liberation column with lots of World War II material, tanks, and all that kind of stuff. I'll be shooting that. I haven't done any traveling, which I miss. Why? Because I paid for all my CLA jobs. I had all my lenses cleaned, and I've almost finished, and then it will all be clean and good to go for the next 30 years. So I couldn't afford to travel this summer. Let's hope that they will change in September, October. And I'm doing a new project, which is called N90. There's a provincial, how do you call that? Like an interstate, Johnny, you know what I mean, in the US?
Yeah.
It's not a highway, but it's like an interstate.
Sure, yeah.
I'm following like a Route 66, but then the Belgian way. So I'm basically...
That's great.
Yeah, so I'm going from here, which is in the west of Belgium, towards the east, towards Germany, say. And I'm trying to make a nice reportage, as they say in French, on that route, which is old, and trying to show Belgium in all its colors or in all its black and white. And you'll once in a while see a picture popping up that I'm publishing. Having a lot of fun with that too. So that's what's going on here, and having a lot of fun doing it.
Okay, I think we will start to wrap things up now. I just remember I usually have my tabs open for the things I'm going to be talking about, and because I need to thank some people for donating to us via coffee. So I'm just loading that up at the moment. Where are we now? And that's coffee.com. That's KO-FI. And I'm still padding this out as I'm trying to get onto the site. And here we go. Go on. Right, so just to thank those people that have donated in the meantime. I'm not sure if I mentioned this last time, but Barry Carr donated to us the other week, and Robbie J. Oh my word! So he's not just giving out Texas Likers; he's actually donating to us as well. So we got
thanks, Robbie.
Yeah, and finally catching up on all the back episodes of the podcast. Have to say, the shows you guys have been doing are great. As informative, as entertaining, as inspiring as ever. Thanks for making Mondays a bit brighter. You guys are the best. Well, thank you very, very much, Robbie.
Indeed.
Yeah, and thank you, Lawrence, as well, who's also donated to us. That's Lawrence Dunn. So that's the coffee donations for this week. So thank you all for doing that. I think this is a time to say thank you, Eric, for sitting in the comfortable seat that's usually occupied by Perry.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been great to have you with us. It's some great insight there as well. And it's always good to hear about the dragons of Mons and things like that as well. Yeah. So we've already done a shout out for your Facebook group. Are there any other places that you might want to give a shout out to or people to? And also, if you can just let people know about where people can find the work that you do.
People can find me through Facebook, which is easiest, and I can then link them to my Flickr account. And a shout out for me to Mike Novak, my man, my true hero, for helping me in the Vintage Film Shooters group, and Jay in Manila in the Philippines. And this time a shout out to Mike Gutterman.
All right.
Yeah, Mike Gutterman. He's the Gutterman in the Gutterman Cave. I love his show. I really do. I think he's doing a great job. But there's a secret. Mike is moving to Leica. I am telling you, I have heard, and he has said it. He's moving to Leica. What is happening to the working man's camera? We don't know. We are confused. What is Mike going to do?
But it's still only SLRs.
Yes, he's moving away. He's getting a bourgeois. I don't know what is taking him, and I don't know. I am afraid. But a shout out, and Mike, if you need help, we are there for you to bring you back on the path of the working man. So don't worry about it. Well, so that's it for me.
He's going to say that he's still on the side of the working man because he's using his Pentax 6.7, and I'm just thinking, how many working men could afford this Pentax 6.7?
Absolutely.
Come on, real.
What is going on in the Gutter Cave? You know, I mean, he was a working man. He was the example for half of Europe. You know, and now he's getting it real. Leica. What is going on? But, you know, we're here to help, Mike. Yeah. We're here to help.
And we're talking here about Leica R cameras, which a few episodes ago we completely slated. Although I've got to say, he was gifted a Leica R8.
It was a Trojan horse. A Trojan horse, Simon.
Well, it was because he's since, I'm not sure if he's actually bought it, but he's certainly looking for one an R7 to go with it, and I totally get that idea, because that's why I have two Contax cameras, one for black and white or for different kinds of film, and you can just swap the lenses between them. I'm not sure if Mike's actually worked out just how expensive Leica R lenses are yet, though. I don't know if he's got that far with his decision-making process.
Why doesn't he just get a freaking rangefinder? He's going to spend all that money on Leica SLR stuff? I
don't know, Johnny. I don't know. We love his show. I really do love his show. And Andre Dominguez that's there with him. I mean, he's been fooling around the cameras. I don't know what's going on. It's a virus, I'm telling you. We have to be careful. So anyway, those are my shout outs, and especially also to Mike and Jay, which are great guys. And I should go to Iowa and visit Mike.
Iowa, Kentucky. Beautiful Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah, but Mike Novak.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm not going. He's going to be a bourgeois. He's not going to accept a working man from Europe.
Right, Johnny, have you got any shout outs?
I do have a couple actually. I think I mentioned. I think I mentioned last week talking to Adrian Doyle, who came through Chicago. I talked to him at Central Camera. He was on the last leg of his huge journey that he was on. Pretty sure I mentioned, but I thought I would throw that out again. And then I talked to Paul Grief this week, who was in town from Wisconsin. Chatted with him at the shop. And then as usual, I feel like it's become such a regular thing, but obviously I talked to Bob Matter this week. I talked to his buddy Mihailo Bradish. They're like the northern Indiana, the Crown Point, Hammond area, Indiana crew that comes through, and I see most at least once a week at Central Camera. So I got to chat with them, and then of course Robbie had a nice combo with Robbie here the past couple weeks on a couple of different times, couple different occasions. So yes, shout out to all those awesome people who make my day a lot more fun at Central Camera every day. So, and a big not shout out to all you damn Lollapalooza people wandering about Chicago, making it horrible this past weekend.
What on earth are you talking about?
The Lollapalooza?
Yeah.
Is that? Yeah. It was in Chicago this past weekend. So we were overrun by
Laws?
Suburban youngsters wearing glitter and pasties and underwear, which sounds like a lot of fun, but trust me, it's not.
It's like Mons.
Yeah, it's like Mons if you had dragons wearing pasties and underwear and glitter, I guess.
Yeah, ain't gonna happen. They were nothing.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm glad that's over. It's been a week.
Right. And so how can people keep up with you and the things that you do?
You can keep up with me at photography on Instagram. You can keep up with me. You can catch up with me at Central Camera Company in Chicago most days of the week. You can get me in those two places, and you can send an email if you want to me and Perry and Simon and the crew at classiclensespodcast@gmail.com. And I guess I could just go ahead and do the rest of it since we're already there. You can follow the podcast, of course, at classiclensespodcast.com. And you can also catch up with our Instagram partners, Best Vintage Lens, over on Instagram. Be sure to check out their oofta magic that they post there most days of the week, every day of the week. It's oofta all day long. So.
And YouTube, right?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So Simon kind of just quietly launched us out onto YouTube, which I haven't checked this out yet. But you can I guess watch and listen to the podcast. Well, you're not watching anything.
Yeah. Watch a picture.
You're just looking at the picture that says Classic Lenses Podcast, and I don't know if there's like a little progress bar. You could watch that, and you could listen to it. You could listen to us, and I guess does it auto caption us? I've heard.
I do believe that's probably the biggest single advantage that somehow subtitles can be produced of what we're saying.
I can't imagine it can properly subtitle all of this, but
just say ooftar again.
Oofta. Oofta loofta magic doofta. Oofta. I just can't imagine it can subtitle that stuff, but I guess it'll be fun to see what it does with it. Yeah. But yeah, you could look us up on over there on YouTube. And then one day we may actually surprise you people and actually just make a proper video where you can see us.
Ooh.
So wearing pasties and glitter.
Or nothing.
And underwear. And our underwear. It's coming to you one of these days on YouTube.
Ratings are about to start dropping very, very quickly.
Yeah.
I think I'm not sure what our YouTube channel is. We'll put a link into the notes. But I think if you actually just search Classic Lenses Podcast on YouTube, you will find our channel. I think there's 4 on there as we speak. So this will be the 5th episode, and I think the last 2 episodes had 0 views last time I looked at it. So it's going really well. So we're really breaking the big time on YouTube. But it was an experiment. I just wanted to know if it would get picked up in any kind of way if we just didn't tell anybody. And actually, Cheyenne Morrison gave it away up when he found it very, very quickly without. And
what happened with that?
Well,
that was like,
well, that explains how.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, that's Cheyenne.
Well, exactly. He's he'll find us wherever we are.
Right.
He tracks us down.
Hey, it says we have 6. No, wait. I'm just sorry. I just went over to look at us on YouTube because I'm really curious. And it looks like we have 6 subscribers.
I am one of them.
Are you really?
Yes, I am.
Wow. It's amazing. Okay. Anyway. All right. I'm just amazed. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we did put a little post out into the Facebook group this week to say as much. So that's how we've actually managed to pick some people up there. So we may have actually had some viewers on some of those that weren't there before. I'm going to have a quick look at this myself now. So my channel, I think you just search Classic Lenses Podcast and you'll find us.
Yeah, that's right. I just went Classic Lenses Podcast on YouTube.
Yeah.
And there we are.
Tovenar is our new subscriber. So
It's me. It's
hey.
me.
Oh, you're Tovenar.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Magic.
I was going to say that doesn't really count, does it? Really?
Well,
Oh,
I can tell my daughter I'm on YouTube. I get Coolidge points.
Actually, there's a great a fun video on a pretty dull subject. Actually, thinking about it, that Ethan Moses did on shutter speed testers. And he started it off by saying, "Hey, I'm a high energy YouTuber here," and then just like switched that off and said, "Right, today we're going to be talking about shutter testing."
Nice.
But it was certainly a high energy start to that one. Right, so we are on YouTube, just about, and that's just about it. Go on.
Almost. That's just about it. I have one more. Before I forget, I have it right here at the top of my notes. That I will be on Grainy Dayz podcast tomorrow with Dustin and Edward and Mac. So there you go. So I'm gonna be doing the chatting with the Grainy Dayz folks.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Well,
looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, you've been good on everything you've been on so far. Obviously, a few dodgy episodes of the Classic Lenses podcast, but we should look on that. That should be good. So,
Many thanks.
And the Grainy, if those people wanted to find that podcast, Grainy, if you just typed in Grainy Dayz in the way that you would say it, you might not find it because they're very much hip and happening, and therefore spell Dayz with a Z or a Z if you're in America, of course.
Yes.
That's it. So, that'll be worth a listen. Okay, so I'll just do my usual shout out for the Six Towns Darkroom, which is part of the Six Towns Photographic Club, which is on a Tuesday night. If you fancy coming down and developing your negatives and doing a bit of printing, talking about old cameras and stuff like that, you're more than welcome to join us. So that's on a Tuesday night, and that's in Tunstall, Stoke-on-Trent. Just send me a PM if you want some details on that, but you'll be very welcome to join us. And the place where you can send PMs to us, you can find me on Facebook in the either in the Photography with Classic Lenses podcast. No, I always get these two things confused now. We've got too many Facebook groups, haven't we? Which probably people are like nodding their heads now at the moment, saying that we have. But well, there we go, we have. So we have 2 Facebook groups. One is dedicated for the podcast, so that's the Classic Lenses Podcast Facebook group, and then a wider topic group, which is photography with classic lenses. So you can find us all there, and you can find me certainly there. So you can just send me a message. I'm on Twitter as Simon4, the 4 being FOR, not the number. I think something creaking in Mons again.
Oh yeah, that's me.
Cellar door to down to the film cellar.
And I'm on Instagram as Simon Forster Photographic. I've got an eBay shop, and I've got my own website where I've got some Kaas adapters, what's left of them, and there are going to be some new adapters coming in the next few weeks, and that's simonforsterphotographic.co.uk. So that's it. I'm going to thank you again, Eric, for doing a great job of looking after things for Perry.
It was fun.
That's it. And actually, just a quick thing, if you do want to keep up with whatever Perry's doing, he's on Instagram, and actually it's just on Instagram, isn't he? It's Perry G. So
Perry G.
Yeah, and he almost certainly hasn't posted anything since the last time he mentioned it. So, but I hope you
drive carefully. Drive carefully now, Perry.
Yeah,
exactly.
Drive carefully.
Yeah, you have a great time over there.
We need you back. We need you back.
So on that, I hope you've enjoyed this week's show. Just need to thank Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com for the music, which is Octo Blues, and that's it. So again, I hope you've enjoyed this week's show, and I hope you can join us in next week. And if you can, be like Carl.
perfect.
That's an outtake that won't make it onto the.
Yeah, thank you very much.